Okay, so what we're going to do in this session is have a look at what moderation is. Now, I know some of you may know a little bit more than others, but what I'll do is I'll just make sure that everyone is very clear on what we mean by moderation, because a lot of your tutors will be talking about moderation now, and you will need to consider it if you are thinking of going to university, either this September or future moderations in the future. So we'll go through what moderation is. I'll give you at least one key date, but some other vaguer times for you to consider around moderation, so then you'll understand what the process is and the timetable for that. We'll have a quick think about submissions of assessments and also around this 1 a week maximum policy that we have. So we'll have a chat about that. We'll be having a think about how you can use your ILP or individual learning plan, because that is one of the key documents that I'll be saying that you should use if you are aiming to finish for moderation. And then we'll have a think about what you can do after this session if you need any further help or advice. So hopefully that will answer some of the questions that you might have come to this session with. But like I said, if you do have anything as we go through the information, put it in the chat box and we'll come back to it at the end. Okay, so moderation is this word that we do talk a lot about at the distancelearningcentre.com, and it's something that some people think they understand, and some people have no idea what it is. So moderations happen twice a year, one in June and one in November, and they are fixed. So we can't moderate work at any other point in the year. So they are really key dates that we work around as tutors. What happens on an Access to HE diploma is that you will submit assessments as you're going through the course, and those assessments will then be marked by your tutor. They'll be passed if they are an ungraded unit, and they will be given a grade if they are a graded unit. Now, when a tutor grades one of those graded units, what they are actually giving is a recommended grade. Okay, tutors cannot award grades. All they can do is say this work is worth whatever, a pass, a merit, or a distinction. What happens at moderation then is once students have finished the course, Ascentis, which is the awarding body for the Access to HE diploma, then sends what we call external verifiers. So these are subject specialists that are hired by Ascentis that come in and sample our work. So they will be looking at a sample of students' work across all the pathways, across all the units, across all the tutors, across all the assessments. And what they will then do is make a decision as to whether the tutors are grading the work accurately and whether they agree with that recommended grade. And they will confirm those grades, or they could actually change those grades. So the grades are set by the external verifiers from Ascentis. We as a company have a lot of processes in place that check a lot of our tutors' marking before we get to moderation. So we make sure that our tutors are marking fairly and accurately across the board. So every student should get a fair grade. So we don't tend to have many grade changes at moderation. So most of the grades that your tutor would recommend actually get awarded to you by Ascentis. So once those grades are confirmed, you officially then have your diploma and the grades that you are given. And what Ascentis will then do is they will print out lovely certificates with all those grades on, send them over to us. We will then double check that those grades are correct, and details like your own name and things, and then we will post them out to you. While that's all going on, so once moderation is complete, Ascentis will also inform UCAS automatically. So if you've got a UCAS application for university and you've got a conditional offer, for example, so you need certain grades, UCAS will automatically be informed about your results. So you don't actually need to go back to your university to actually tell them what you've got. The only time you would need to do that is if you have applied to a university without using the UCAS application process. What the universities can then do is they can then finalise their offers to students with those grades. Just to bear in mind that most universities will want moderated results from you. It's really important that if you do have a university course that you want to go on, that you need to have got your moderated results before you actually have the start date. So for example, if you've got a course that you want to start this September, you really need to be aiming for June moderation this year. So that's a little bit about moderation. The key dates, so we've got 2 moderations. We've got one in June and one in November. From a student's point of view, if you want to hit one of those moderation dates, you have to have submitted all of your assessments by the final Friday of the month before. So if it's June moderation you're going for, then you need to have completed everything for the final Friday of May. And if it's November moderation that you're going for, it has to be the final Friday of October. So the next moderation that's coming up is this June. So all your work would have to be completed by Friday, the 27th of May. Hopefully that will be the last assessment that you'll be handing in on or before that date. You can finish before that date, that's perfectly fine, but that is the last date that you'll be able to submit work to meet moderation. What happens after that then is the tutors will have to mark that outstanding work. So any assessments that haven't been marked up to that point, they will need to make sure that they are marked, and they have a very, very tight turnaround time to actually get that marking completed. So they only have 2 weeks to get everything marked and all your grades on the system. So it's quite frantic and busy for our tutors around moderation times. The key thing to remember is that in that 2 weeks, you also have to have completed any resubmissions that might be outstanding. So if your work is a resubmission, your tutor is going to have to quickly mark it. You're going to have to redo the bits that you need to complete and then submit it, and the tutor has to mark it again. So that has to happen in that very, very short time frame of 2 weeks. So that's why we have to put a deadline of Friday the 27th of May for everything to be submitted for moderation. Once all the mark sheets are uploaded and all the grades are on the system, our exams officer will then report those grades to Ascentis, and that will happen in mid-June. So that's after that 2-week marking period. And then the external verifiers will come in and sample our work between mid-June and mid-July. And in mid-July, there is a final awards board that takes place, and that will be when everything is confirmed and everything is signed off. As a learner, what you will have is an email to say that that process has been completed. So you'll get an email from exams that will say that moderation has been completed and you have been awarded your grades. At that point, if there are any grade changes, you will be informed of them. But like I said, we have very, very few grade changes in our moderations. So the majority of you will just basically be told that moderation is complete. And then Ascentis will print out the certificates, we will check them. So you won't receive your certificate until probably mid to end of August. But you will have your qualification on the system. So UCAS will have that information. You just be waiting for your lovely certificate to turn up. But the key date from that is Friday, the 27th of May. That's the key date that you need to think about from a learner perspective. Excuse me. You can find more information about this moderation. I'm just going to click off this page here, and I'm actually going to just go onto a learner account. So if you're on your account and you want to find out a bit more about the information that I've just given you about moderation, you can go to My Courses, and there's a section there called Moderation and Exam Dates. And if you click on that, you can see that we've now got the November moderation information up, which we actually call the December certification. And if we scroll down a little bit more, this is the next moderation that's coming up. So this is the June moderation information, and we call that the July certification, because that's when your certificates are going to start being printed out. So you can see here that we've got that key date of the 27th of May 2022. So after this call, if you want to have a read through this information, if you're aiming for June moderation, please do. The other place you can find some information about moderation is in your materials section. So if we go back to the account hub, if we click on the materials link, I'll then go to the developmental section. Hopefully you've been looking at things like these study skills guides, but you'll notice that one of them is called Study Skills, Understanding Moderations and Your Results. So if you want to, again, have a look through that information in a bit more detail, that file will tell you a little bit more about what I've been talking about. So just go back to my presentation. So that's what I've got shown here. So that's on the moderation and exam dates drop-down menu, and this is where you can find a little bit more information about moderation. So we know when we need to finish things by. So how we're going to get there. So what you've got to think about is you've got some assessments that you need to submit by that key date of the 27th of May. And the one thing that you've got to consider is that we have a policy where you can only submit one assessment per week at a maximum. Okay, that is a policy that's in place simply because we can't have students just submitting a lot of work right at the end of the course. If you think about what our tutors have got to do, they've got to mark that work within 2 weeks, they've got to sort out any resubmissions. So this is so then we can pace you as a student running up to moderation. It is not the best way of completing a course though. So this one assessment per week is not something that we would say would be a normal way to work on the diploma. So if you're leaving yourself only enough time to submit one assessment per week, then you may want to have a chat to your tutor about what your options are, because submitting one assessment a week is very challenging, especially if it's a 6 credit unit, and especially if it's got an exam in there. There's a lot of work to do. So try and leave yourself a lot of time. So at the moment, we've got 14 weeks until moderation. So 14 weeks today is the 27th of May. So what I would suggest you do is make sure that you try and spread out any work that you've got remaining over that time. So leave yourself plenty of time to get your work done. One thing you will need to make sure you do when you do submit your assessments is that they are ready for marking. Now, your tutors may be telling you this in tutorials or emails, but it is really important, because if your work is not ready for marking, it is taken down off your account and that time carries on ticking. So that one assessment a week upload may not have happened because you haven't uploaded something that is suitable for marking. So there's a study skills guide on how to make sure your work is ready for marking. If you haven't looked at that up to now, please do. But it's things like making sure that you fill in all the front sheets, you fill in the page numbers for where you've met the assessment criteria, you fill in the word counts as you go through the TAQs. You put in your references. If you need to in-text citate, then you put those in-text citations in, etc., etc. So make sure that what you upload is ready for marking. What we also find is if students rush, then the quality of the work can sometimes be affected. So it might be all well and good rushing through your course and finishing for moderation and submitting a lot of work very quickly, but what is the quality of that work like? We want you to get onto your university course, and we want you to get the grades that you deserve on this course. So what we also want you to do is make sure that you take the time to produce the best work that you can. So try not leave it to the one assessment a week scenario where you're going to have to rush through that work. And to get to that point, I've got 3 big words there at the bottom of my slide: plan, plan, plan. You need a plan. Okay, so if you've got a specific moderation that you're aiming for, plan how you're going to get there. Okay, and the plan will hopefully involve using an individual learning plan or an ILP. So you may have heard of these when you first started your course. Your tutor may have mentioned them. They may have directed you to some of the videos that we've got on these. You may have done something with that information, you may not. Okay, if you haven't looked at your individual learning plan either at all or for a long time, this is the time to do it. So if you're aiming to complete full June moderation, this is the time when you really need to be using that individual learning plan, because it will allow you to build a timetable to plan how you are going to get to that moderation date. So if you want to find an ILP, I'll just go back to my learner account. And if we just go back to the account hub, if you want to find your ILP, and all ILPs are different on different pathways. So if you're on a nursing and midwifery diploma, your ILP will look different from someone who's on a social work diploma, for example. But if you go to the materials section of your course, you've got a few drop-down menus here. Go to individual learning plan. It'll take you further down the page, and you've got a link there to a file that will open up your specific ILP for your specific pathway. Now, what we've done recently is we've actually updated the ILPs. So I've got a couple of versions open here. If you've opened an ILP a while ago, it might look a little bit like this one. Lots of boxes. It's quite long, but it's, you know, it lists all your assessments that you need to do on your diploma and gives you an opportunity to put some planned completion dates in. So that's what the old diploma, that's what the old ILP looks like. We've actually updated some to just streamline them a little bit. So this is what a newer ILP will look like. It's just shorter. We've took a lot of the boxes out, and we've basically put one unit on each row. So it just means then that you don't have to keep scrolling through everything. Both of them are exactly the same, though, in terms of how you would use them. So if you've got an old version, you know, stick with it. If you've got a new version, stick with that. But what you need to do is you need to start thinking about when are you going to submit the rest of the work that you have outstanding. So what your ILP shows you is your units. It shows you how many credits each one is worth, and it also tells you whether they are ungraded or whether they've got an exam included in them. If you're thinking about June moderation this year, I'm hoping that you are partway through your diploma. So for example, if this was my ILP, if we look at these planned completion dates that I've given myself, it's the 18th of February now. So I should be coming up to this unit here. I should be coming up to submitting psychological perspectives and behaviour, because that is the planned completion date I've given myself as the 20th of February. If I'm way back here, and this, you know, I might only be working on Introduction to Criminology at the moment, I'm probably going to miss moderation. I've left myself a little bit too much work to do. So have a look at your ILP, have a look at how much you've got left to complete. And then I'm not going to go through how to create these dates here, how to create this timetable. We've actually got a couple of videos that are available for you. And if you can't find the link from your tutor, they are actually in the student handbook. So on your account, if you go to the toolkit drop-down menu, and you go to the student handbook, I've opened it up here on the right page, just so that I'm not scrolling through. But on the Access to Diploma, Access HE Diploma, we're on page 23. And here is where the 2 videos for your ILP are. Now, if you're using your ILP for the very first time, I would suggest that you use this first video. But if you're partway through your diploma and you're thinking about, you know, planning the last part of your diploma, then I would have a look at reviewing your ILP, because this video assumes that you're partway through the diploma, you've got some credits under your belt, and you've just got some assessments to complete. So there's lots of information in that video. It takes you step by step through how to calculate and how to put a timetable together. But that is the key thing I would advise you to do at this stage now, is look at your ILP, get a timetable together, and upload that ILP to your account. If you've got a timetable, you've got something to aim for. You'll at least know whether or not you are going to then hit moderation or miss moderation at certain points over the next couple of months. If you upload a copy of that ILP to your account, then it will mean that your tutor can also see that ILP. So if you have a tutorial with your tutor, and you're talking about how you're progressing and whether or not you've got enough time to complete things, you can both have a look at that ILP and look at whether that's realistic. So that's my key advice here, is to have a look at your ILP, get some dates in there, have a good plan. Remember the 1 assessment a week upload, so your dates can't be any quicker than one a week, but put a plan together. As a quick overview, as we're running up to moderation, the ILP is there, so you can see where you're up to and what you've got left. But you can also, every once in a while, just have a quick look on your account just to see how many assessments you've got left. I've got a couple of assessments here because the learner account that I've got at the moment that I'm using as an example hasn't actually got any work uploaded onto that. So I've got an example of a student here. So this is where your My Grades and Mark Sheets are. So if I just go and show you which page I'm looking at on your learner account. So if we go to My Courses drop-down menu, you've got My Grades and Mark Sheets. Now, if you're partway through your diploma, you should be familiar with this page because this is where you will get your feedback from your tutor when they mark each of these units. Like I said, on this account, we haven't got any work uploaded or any work marked on this, so there's no links to any mark sheets on this. But if we go back to our example, you can see this student has had all of this work marked, and we've got the recommended grades and things there. What they haven't done is finish these last 5 assessments. So I'm assuming here that the student hasn't uploaded any assessments for this. So they've got 5 more assessments to do. So that timetable should take into account how are they going to submit those 5 assessments in a timely manner to be able to complete for moderation. And if you notice, there's also an assessment there that has got an exam in there. So that's got to be built into that timetable. At the moment, if I was the student, I'd be thinking I've got a realistic chance of making it for moderation. I've got 14 weeks left. I've got 5 assessments to do. If I go into this next student, they've again completed some work, but they've got 9 assessments to do. So it's not impossible. You know, they'd be cutting it a bit fine, 14 weeks and 9 assessments, but this would be quite challenging at this point in time. We never say never. So, you know, we always say, you know, think positive, but this is a lot of work to do in the next 14 weeks. So if I was the student, I'd be talking to my tutor to talk about how to actually complete this work and what to do if I don't make moderation. So that's a quick way of just having a look at how many assessments you've actually got outstanding. Obviously, everyone's individual and everyone's got different plans for university, has got different stages at which they're at in their diploma. So what I would suggest you do is, if you want any more further advice on a personal level, please do book a tutorial in with your tutor and have a chat to them. They are the experts, they know what they're doing, they know you. So they can talk to you about what your plans are, how you can get there, and if you're still unsure about how to use your ILP or how to build that timetable, they can give you some more advice. If for whatever reason over the next few weeks you realise you're not going to get to that deadline of the 27th of May, or whatever moderation you aim for in the future, and you're going to miss it, don't panic too much. We do have a lot of students that have plan A's and want to go to university in a certain year and do miss moderation. The key thing is all is not lost. What I would suggest you do at that point is actually go back to the university that you would like to go to talk to the admissions tutor there and explore any options. So what they could suggest to you is that, yes, they will keep your place open. It doesn't matter that you've missed moderation. They will allow you to start the course, and they will accept a set of moderated results at a later date. They might say you'll need to complete over summer. That doesn't happen very often, though, so don't get your hopes up that that's going to be an option. We occasionally hear of some universities that do, but more often than not, they will need those moderated results. What they may suggest is that they can keep your place open for a start in a future year. So instead of starting maybe in 2022, you would start in 2023. So they might allow you to defer your start date without actually having to go through another application process. But what they also may say is that we can't offer you a place this year, so you will have to apply again for a future date. So it could be that you miss your opportunity this year. But what I would suggest you do in that case is think positively, continue with your diploma. You could probably slow down at that point and make sure that you are doing the work properly if you've been trying to rush to complete the moderation. So slow down, complete your diploma to the best of your ability, and you can always apply through us again through UCAS in a future year. We will always help you do that, even if you've finished your diploma. So all is not lost. You just might have to revert to plan B, which might be, going to university in a year that you were at a later date, I suppose. That's basically everything that I'm going to tell you. So I will take some questions now. I noticed that there's a couple of things in the chat room. What I might do now is actually stop my recording, and then we can come back to it, come back to the questions. So I'm going to stop recording